Today we'll be covering a major portion of ophthalmology. So I want to start off with the anatomy, like what a layman would know, not as a medical student. So I've got this model over here. Can someone start telling me all the different structures you are able to see? We'll start off with the skin. Okay, so I'll remove the skin, and then you tell me what you're able to see over there. So that is the skin. We have removed the skin. So what is this?
Um, mus- uh, Muscle layer, yeah?
Yeah. So what muscle is this? It's circular. So it helps.
Orbicularis
Orbicularis
oculi.
oculi muscle.
Exactly. So I'll just show that to you. This is orbicularis oculi muscle. So we'll remove that too. Okay. So what do you see now?
Mm,
Tarsal plate.
Yeah.
The lids.
Yeah. Like this would be what you're saying.
Yeah.
The tarsal
inferior
plate.
dorsal.
This white thing. What is this? I'll give you a better clue here.
Is it like any fascia? Fascia is
Okay.
this one. Oh,
Yeah. So that's the orbital septum. So
septum.
we'll remove that. And so now we're seeing a lot of ligaments and muscles. So what is this?
LPS muscle.
LPS in the sense full form. Don't use abbreviations.
Levator
Levator
palpebris.
palpebrae superioris.
Yeah, exactly. So that is that muscle. What will this muscle be then?
Capsulopalpebration.
Yeah. So we've removed that. And now you have your extraocular muscle, so you can start naming them easily.
Yes.
So this one,
Superior rectus.
eh, yeah. So yes, that will be the superior rectus. And then this one,
Inferior rectus.
yeah, inferior rectus. Actually, that is the tarsal muscles, and so this will be the superior rectus,
Okay,
and
okay.
this would be the
Inferior rectus.
yeah, this one will be the inferior rectus, and the other recti
Medial dorsal.
muscles,
Medial and lateral. This one
yeah.
is medial. Yeah.
So medial one and
This
lateral
is a
one,
lateral one.
yeah. So I'll just remove all of those muscles. Okay, and these ligaments all I'll just remove. Yeah. So what do you see now? What is this the thing on the top?
Lacrimal gland.
Yeah, that's a lacrimal gland. We'll remove the tarsal plates. What are these glands over here?
Meibomian.
Yeah, those are the meibomian glands. So what is this black thing over there? That'll be the
Eyelashes.
yeah. So we'll remove the
Eyelash.
eyelashes too. So you see the eyeball over here, right? So what
Yeah.
is this outermost layer?
Cornea.
So this is the sagittal section of the eye. So we were looking at the cornea, right? So this would be the cornea. So I was asking you what does the cornea continue as, like this part?
Sclera.
Yeah, so that will be the sclera. What is there beneath that? So this is your sclera, and this part is your cornea.
Yeah.
So what is there beneath that? Like here.
We have angle of anterior chamber and then iris.
Yeah, okay. That you're telling the this part. You just leave this part for now. Okay, this quadrangle
Tenon's
I don't.
capsule.
Yeah, so you leave that and we'll go here. Yeah, so this part over here. What is this? Like this is the sclera. This
Tenon's
part is the
capsule.
sclera. So what is there beneath the Tenon's capsule? This thing.
Choroid.
Yeah, you were saying something.
Choroid retina.
Yeah, choroid. So choroid, and you have the retina. So and then this part just will touch a little bit on this. So what is this?
Optic disc and optic nerve.
Yeah, so this will be the optic nerve over here. This region is the optic disc, and anything else? Optic
Ar-
cup.
Artery.
Yeah, so these are all the retinal veins and arteries.
Artery. Yeah.
So we can see those in fundus examination. We'll talk about that in detail later. So we'll come to this. Can someone tell me the structures from anterior to posterior like this in this order?
Cornea,
Yeah,
iris,
in between.
pupil,
Anterior
angle
chamber.
of anterior
Anterior
chamber,
chamber.
Yeah,
iris,
there's a space. You need to mention that space, that anterior chamber, and then you tell me iris. Then
iris, ciliary body,
yeah.
zonules,
Okay, you're talking about this region. You just stick on to the lens and behind us like that. Yeah, go on. Like you were saying, ciliary body is over here. Then go on inside.
zonules, lens,
Hmm.
vitreous, vitreous.
And then retina. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch upon all of that before going into each and every part in detail. So this is how it looks, and you can see the muscles over here. These are the ciliary muscles. So these ones over here, they're the ciliary muscles. Okay. So just have a good look at the model. If you have a good idea about this and where each and every part is, that will be really useful. So someone said anterior chamber, iris, and then ciliary body, right? Can somebody tell me something about anterior segment and posterior segment? Like how do you split it?
Lens divides into anterior segment and posterior segment, and iris divides into anterior chamber and posterior chamber.
Yeah, correct. So from where to where is anterior chamber?
From cornea to the iris, it is
Yeah, perfect.
anterior chamber.
From iris to lens, it is posterior chamber, and everything behind that is posterior segment. Everything in front of the lens is anterior segment. I hope so much anatomy is clear. So, does anyone have any doubt to the anatomy? Like basic stuff is this is what is the basics of the eye. We have not gone into the layers of cornea, conjunctiva, and all those things. We'll go into the details, but this is the basic thing you're supposed to know. The main parts are the cornea, sclera, before that conjunctiva, and then your anterior chamber, your lens, iris, your vitreous, your fundus, retina. So your main portion will cover most of this. After this, like from here where the optic nerve goes and goes to the brain directly via the pathway, you will have few lesions and corresponding visual disturbances. We'll touch upon those too. So this is the main portion of ophthalmology. Other than this, they will talk a little more about lacrimal gland because it's very close to the eye, and the uh, lacrimal sac, dacryocystitis. Those are the other things which they will talk about. So, if you know the pathology of each of these regions in specific, that would cover about 60 to 70% of the portions. The rest 30% of the portions will be the systemic diseases and other diseases which affect the eyes indirectly, like how diabetes, hypertension, then thyroid disease, all of those affect the eye. So, that will be the rest part of ophthalmology. So, we'll begin our actual session. So, this was just like an orientation or introduction to get ourselves familiar with the different regions of the eye. We were talking about the different regions of the eye, right? So we'll split it into the anterior segment and the posterior segment. So you all guys know that the anterior segment is anything in front of the lens. So this will be your anterior segment. Everything behind this will be a posterior segment. So talking about the anterior segment, we start with the conjunctiva. Does anyone know the parts of the conjunctiva?
Palpebral conjunctiva, bulbar
Palpebral conjunctiva and bulbar conjunctiva.
conjunctiva.
Okay. So, uh, okay. Before going to all of this, I just wanted to talk a little bit about embryology of the eye. It's a very rare question, but it's asked sometimes in the exam. So we'll just touch upon it. Can someone tell me the different layers from which the eye develops? Like you have endoderm, mesoderm, ectoderm, right? So from which layers do you think the eye develops?
Neuroectoderm.
Yeah, which part? Okay, that is right. That is partly right. Anything else? The whole of the eye doesn't develop only from the neuroectoderm. Whatever you said about the neuroectoderm, right? The retina, the fundus, the optic nerve, all of those derive from the neuroectoderm. But the lens, the conjunctiva,
Surface
the
ectoderm.
yeah surface ectoderm, the muscles and tarsal plates, all of those are derived from the mesoderm. So this is the basic idea. So if you want to know how it happens, first of all, the lens is a derivative of the surface ectoderm. It just comes into and it's encompassed by the mesoderm. So the development of lens is unique. From the inside, the neuroectoderm, the fundus, the retinas, and the blood vessels, all of those develop. From the outside, the conjunctiva and then the cornea, all of those start developing and they all fuse together. So most of the development of the eye is finished by the time we are born, and it is the eye is about the size of 70% the size of a adult by the time you're born. Your eye fully develops by the age of 8. So these are few points about embryology which I wanted to touch upon. So we were talking about the conjunctiva, and you said the parts of the conjunctiva are the palpebral conjunctiva and bulbar conjunctiva. So do you guys know how to examine the conjunctiva, guys? Like how do you check the conjunctiva? You usually check it for all general examinations.
For pale,
Yeah,
for icterus.
yeah. So how do you check for pallor? How do you check for icterus?
As a patient to look up, we can look for palpable conjunctiva. If it looks pale, it will confirm.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. So before going to that, can someone tell me the layers of conjunctiva? Don't complicate it too much. Like what is mainly present in the conjunctiva? What kind of issues can you
Epithelium,
see?
adenoid layer, fibrous layer,
Yeah, and
adenoid layer, fibrous layer, epithelium.
exactly. So those three are the layers of conjunctiva, and there are a lot of blood vessels present over there in the conjunctiva. So any kind of inflammation over there, you're going to have redness. And the most common symptom which you're going to see with respect to conjunctiva is red eye. So can someone tell me the various differential diagnosis for red eye? If someone comes, a patient comes to the OPD with a red eye, what are the things you will be having in your mind as the possible diagnosis?
Congestive glaucoma,
Okay.
acute iridocyclitis,
Iridocyclitis.
and conjunctivitis.
Yeah,
Could we
that
go
is a
like causes like corneal causes, conjunctival causes?
exactly, exactly. So I just wanted you to limit yourself to conjunctival causes, but you said all
Okay.
the possible causes for red eye. That just shows that the cause of red eye is not limited to the conjunctiva, but it's mainly like your first thing you need to rule out is conjunctival causes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll limit ourselves to conjunctival causes. So causes for red eye, conjunctival causes.
Conjunctivitis.
Yeah, conjunctivitis. Yeah, that is a very huge thing. So can you just split it up into various types and what are the things you look out for?
Yes.
Like any infection, you take infection, you're going to have different reasons for that infection to occur, right? So bacteria, viral, fungus, autoimmune, allergic. So these are all the various causes for conjunctivitis, and each one of them is a possible short note for us. You have bacterial conjunctivitis, viral conjunctivitis, fungal conjunctivitis, parasitic conjunctivitis, allergic conjunctivitis, vernal conjunctivitis or spring catarrh, and there will be a. Am I missing out anything? Like, does anyone know anything?
Trachoma,
Yeah,
chlamydia.
trachoma. Chlamydia is another important thing. Like there are specific programs in the world to prevent chlamydial conjunctivitis. So these are all the various pathologies you'll be encountering in the conjunctiva. So what do you think is the main sign you're going to see?
Congestion and discharge.
Yeah, so you're going to have epiphora usually. If you have watering from the eye, that is one classical sign of any kind of eye disease, usually conjunctival disease. Okay, and then congestion, you have red color. Anything else like signs? These two are picked up by the patient. Like the patient themselves can see that their eye is red and they're watering. As a physician, you're supposed to pick up signs. So, what are the various signs you look out for?
Papillary hypertrophy of palpebral conjunctiva.
In
Palpebral conjunctiva.
yeah, in which condition?
Um, like bacterial conjunctivitis.
Exactly. Like when you're telling me a sign, it needs to help you to narrow down conjunctivitis, right?
Yes, yes.
So if when you're saying papillary hypertrophy, you need to tell me what does it tell you? What kind of infection is it? What is your takeaway from that sign? So any other sign, like cobblestone appearance is classic sign of
Trachoma. Sorry.
allergic conjunctivitis.
Conjunctivitis. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other sign like that
Membranous conjunctivitis.
in?
Diphtheria, diphtheritic conjunctivitis. Or even
Okay.
in gonococcal sometimes.
Yeah, okay, fine. Then anything else like
Sago
I,
brain.
Agitations.
yeah, go on. Yeah,
In Steven Johnson's, we have adhesions.
very rare conditions, but okay.
We have
We'll,
seen almost like 3 or 4 cases when we were in OPD. Okay.
okay, I have not seen any case. Okay, fine. I'll take it. Anything else? Like any any trauma, like short case. Hemorrhage, dash hemorrhage.
Subconjunctival.
Yeah. So you need to think about all of these. Okay, when you're thinking about conjunctiva. And how do you check is you pull the palpebral conjunctiva and you check for pallor. You make the patient look up and you check the palpebral conjunctiva. Icterus you don't see in the conjunctiva, you see in the sclera. So get that clear. And then the various types of conjunctivitis are bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, allergic, trachoma, vernal, all these are the different types of conjunctivitis. And can you just quickly tell me some investigation which you'll do to rule out all of this? Like you're taking a CBC, okay? What will you pick up from the CBC and how will you differentially diagnose these different types of conjunctivitis? In bacterial, dash will be increased. In parasitic, dash will be increased.
Neutrophils in bacterial, acute
Yeah,
bacterial.
exactly. And
Uh, in allergic, eosinophilic.
exactly, superb. Then
In viral.
lymphocytes will be increased in everything else.
Yes.
Mucopurulent discharge is present in dash conjunctivitis.
Bacterial, all bacterial.
Exactly. So painful conjunctivitis.
Angular.
Yeah. So you just when you're thinking about one specific region of the eye, don't limit to that. So I'm going to ask you another question. Complications of conjunctivitis. If you have a problem in the conjunctiva, where all do you think it is going to spread to?
Cornea.
Nasolacrimal
Yeah.
duct.
Keratitis.
Yeah, so it can go to the cornea, which is very, very common. When you close the eye, there's going to be some kind of corneal involvement. Yes, it can go to the lacrimal sac to the via the lacrimal.
Diagnosis.
Yeah, so that is also very common. Anything else?
To the lids, preseptal. Very rare, but.
Okay, to the lips. Uh, okay, so can you tell me some other? Okay, we talked about infectious pathology and complications of conjunctiva. Can you tell me some other types of pathology in the conjunctiva, like degeneration?
Pterygium.
Yeah. Others, pterygium and
Pinguicula.
pinguicula. And
Pseudopterygium.
Yeah, okay. Pseudopterygium. So these are all degenerations of the conjunctiva. And then anything else, any deposition per se?
White hot spots.
Bite hot spots, dry eye. Okay. Vitamin A deficiency. You can pick that up, but yeah, you can see that in the conjunctiva. Like it'll become dry. Anything else? I'm asking about accumulation, like metals. Think of metals or something like that. Argyrosis. Never heard of it, guys.
What is it?
It's accumulation of silver in the eye, silver particles.
Due to like silver nitrate. Due to what?
Exposure to silver, like in mining places and like that, silver will get. You
Like
know those.
foreign body
Yeah,
in
exactly.
okay.
So yeah, so those are the degenerations and these things. So what kind of treatment will you do for any conjunctival disease?
Find the cause first.
Usually they're going to have epiphora and red eye, right? So to clear the red eye, what are you going to do? Like most common cause of conjunctivitis, symptomatic approach.
Lubricant drops.
Okay, you can give those lubricant drops. Anything else? Like most common is bacterial, so you can prescribe antibiotic
Topical
drops.
antibiotics.
Yeah, so if it's very worse infection, then you can go for a steroid. Yeah, so these are the conjunctival deposits I was talking about. So you have six of them. Iron, like women when they use makeup, right? Those products have a lot of iron in them, so it can get deposited in the conjunctiva. Then argyrosis is silver, a deposition of silver, and metallic foreign bodies or jaundice or adrenochrome. Those are the various things which can get deposited in the conjunctiva. So I just thought I had to mention about that, and I told you guys about it. So management, I told you about antibiotic drops, lubricant gels, and in severe infection, you use steroid drops. So moving on, so conjunctiva, then cornea. So what are the most common
Just
corneal?
one point. One point.
Yeah,
In conjunctiva, we have this preauricular lymphadenopathy, no? In viral conjunctivitis. So
yeah,
that is also a sign, another sign, specific for viral.
yeah. So she's saying that, yeah, correct. Any viral or any parasitic infection, you'll have uh, enlargement of lymph nodes around the areas. She's saying it will be around the pre-auricular region in this case. So it's a good point. So anyone else wants to add anything else? Hello guys. If anyone wants to add anything, you can add or we'll move on to cornea. Guys, so shall we move on to the cornea?
Yes, we can move.
Okay, so cornea, the layers of cornea. Someone tell me the
Epithelium,
hmm,
Bowman's membrane, stroma,
hmm.
Dewars layer, decimens, and endothelium.
Okay, perfect. So there is a specific question which they keep asking. Why is the cornea transparent or how does it maintain its transparency? Someone,
Endothelial layer. pumps in the endothelial layer.
There are about 4 or 5 points. Just short notes. So if you give us more points, it'll be easier for us to write. Yeah, one is those pumps which maintain hydration, so that's how it's transparent. What pumps are those?
Sodium potassium ATPase.
Exactly. So sodium potassium ATPase pumps are there. They help in maintenance of the hydration of the cornea, so it's transparent. 1 point. Next.
It is a single layer, so I'm not sure if that is a point.
That's not a point. Like the arrangement of the fibers are in a lattice symmetry, so that's why it is transparent. That is another point. Anything else? Like it's given in almost all textbooks.
Density, it maintains the
Yeah,
stroma.
it
Density.
maintains because of those sodium potassium pumps, and then there's lattice symmetry. Anything else?
No, the density of cornea is 500 cells. No, if it reduces, there is higher chance of stromal edema. So,
I didn't get you. Can you elaborate?
so there is this critical density. Corneal density is 500 cells per millimeter square.
Okay.
If the density reduces, then there is a higher chance of stromal edema. Like water can get water or so liquids can get trapped in, and it could result in edema.
Okay.
Then it will lose its transparency.
Yeah. Correct. So I've written 2 points over here. Uniform arrangement of collagen fibrils and 70% water content. So other than that, those pumps and this density and this lattice symmetry, these are the 5 points which you have to remember when they ask this question, and you can use this. So the different corneal pathologies, can someone elaborate on them? Yeah. Guys, like we were talking about the conjunctiva, right? We had inflammatory conditions, allergic conditions, and then degenerations, and then deposits like that in the cornea. What are the different kinds of conditions we're going to have?
Inflammations,
Yeah.
opacities,
Okay.
degenerations,
Hmm.
dystrophies.
Hmm. You know those rings which you see in the cornea, Kayser-Fisher rings.
Metabolic.
Hmm. So
Copper
Yeah, these
deposit.
lines, iron lines, copper lines.
yeah, so those also can be seen in the cornea. So what is the main function of cornea?
Vision,
Yeah,
refraction.
refraction, exactly. So it has a very strong power. It has 43 diopters of power, and it is a very good refractive medium. It helps in focusing the light. So all of that it's able to do because of its transparency. So that's why we need to know why it maintains its transparency, and in all of these conditions that transparency is going to be lost. Okay, in inflammations or degenerations or dystrophies or pigmentations or lines, or all of these conditions, the transparency of the cornea is going to be lost. So just basic histology is here. So can you like predict the type of diseases which will happen in the cornea? How and all can it lose its transparency? Okay, I will give you a hint. If something starts growing over here, what happens? What is this known as?
Metaplasia, like
Not,
Pterygium.
no. We are in the cornea. Okay.
okay.
Yeah, pterygium may intrude into the cornea. Yeah, I agree. You think about infections. Don't think about growth. Na metaplasia. Don't go like that. Bacterial growth, viral growth, fungal growth, like that. Okay. If something.
Inflammation followed by necrosis, followed by opacity.
Ah, exactly. So if it is superficial like this, what will you call it?
Superficial keratitis.
Exactly. So first, that is how every disease starts. Okay, any corneal disease, usually if it's infectious, if it's bacterial, viral, fungal, it is going to start growing over here. Slowly, slowly, it will go in over here. And what does it cause?
Also,
Exactly. So that is the disease progression. You have a superficial keratitis. Once it goes and reaches the corneal stroma, it becomes ulcer. Okay, now ulcer has come. It's come over here. Now even down it goes, reaches here. What happens?
Perforation.
And what happens after this? What is that beneath this? What is that beneath this over here?
iris.
Anterior chamber.
Yeah, so you have hypopyon, all of those things will start happening, and this cornea will become damaged to an extent where you can't repair it. Okay, like, am I making sense or am I telling something wrong here, guys?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll just carry on. So, how do you examine the cornea? What are the different things you'll check in the cornea?
Like
Sensation. Reflex.
reflex, corneal reflex.
Yeah, can someone tell me how do you check the corneal reflex?
The wisp of cotton, we can ask the patient to touch. If the patient reacts to it, we can elicit that reaction.
Okay, so which nerve produces or is the responsible for the sensation of the eye per se on the whole?
Fifth cranial nerve, ophthalmic division, V1.
Exactly. So the trigeminal nerve is the sensory part of the eye. So,
Nasociliary.
so the motor part is mainly by
Facial.
that is
So like
all
eye
because
oculomotor.
oculomotor nerve and
Trochlea.
yeah and
Abducens. 6, 3,
exactly.
4, 6.
So
Yes.
these are all the motor
3, 4,
supplies
6.
of the eye. So we are checking for that. Okay, move on. What else will you check in the cornea?
Sensation.
Sensation. Yeah.
Keratometry.
Okay, you're going to go for keratometry. Why do you do keratometry and how do you do it?
Keratometer for
Which is
measuring the
ah,
Used for measuring the curvature of cornea.
exactly. Mm.
In lens formula also we'll have the K measurement.
Yeah, correct. How do you do it and why do you do it? Okay, at least why do you do it? Why do you want to measure the corneal curvature?
to
There,
first
there are a few
IOL.
conditions. We have
Exactly. Like what are
increased
those? What are those conditions?
keratoconus. We have increased curvature.
Yeah, exactly. Then anything else? Keratoconus,
Globus.
keratoglobus.
Plana cornea plana. There is decreased.
Yeah, so all of those conditions you need to rule out by using this keratometry. So in case you don't have, you want to check the corneal curvature in the OPD, you don't have any complicated high funder devices, what will you do?
Torchlight. Slit lamp.
Okay, you just see the patient's eye from the side view, you will see a prominent conical shape or bulging shape or something like that. It's very easy to pick up. If you use a torch, it'll become more very much prominent, and you'll be easily able to pick up any kind of corneal shape, curvature differences. So any other thing you'll do with the cornea. If you're suspecting a corneal ulcer, what would you do?
Staining. Fluorescent stain.
Yeah. So what exactly do you do over there?
we take this fluorescent strip, fluorescent dye,
Dye.
and we'll strip it over corneal surface. And then under cobalt blue light, if there is any ulcer, then we'll get fluorescence, green colored fluorescence.
Correct. So if you see any fluorescent color, like you put it over the cornea and you make the patient close their eyes 2 to 3 times, and after that, if you see any kind of fluorescent thing on their eye, it means there is some kind of corneal defect and that fluid has gone and got deposited in that area. So that is what you do for corneal ulcers. Anything else you will do with the cornea? I don't think we do anything else. So we were talking about inflammation, right? The keratitis. So there can be like again based on the causes, you can have a bacterial, a fungal, or a marginal ulcer, and then viral, and then you have other like these are all superficial, and then usually the deep ones are due to the syphilis, tuberculosis, and all of these when they grow very deep, they form all of these complicated conditions over here. So then there are other reasons for corneal keratitis. So like she was saying, all rare conditions also are given over here. These ones over here. Okay. This degenerations and dystrophies, they won't touch upon usually, but if anyone knows anything about that, please do tell us something about it. Okay, I thought this table alone would be useful for differentiating what is a dystrophy and a degeneration. So dystrophy is like some kind of genetically some problem will be there, so it will usually be bilateral, symmetric, and hereditary. So if you have genetic in your mind, all of these points will flow into their order. So appears early in life, non-inflammatory, avascular and located centrally, painless. Systemic associations are rare. Everything is genetically determined. So those are dystrophies. Degenerations are usually like random, some kind of after they're born, some acquired gene defects or something like that. So they can be unilateral or bilateral. They're sporadic. They appear later in life, and then it is inflammatory, and then it's mostly eccentric and it's associated with pain, and local and systemic conditions are usually associated with degenerations. So there are many named degenerations, so all of those are given in this list over here. So arcus senilis, arcus juvenalis, band shaped keratopathy are the degeneration. Dystrophies are your hereditary corneal dystrophy, Reese-Buckler dystrophy, endothelial corneal dystrophies of Fuchs. If you want to note these down, you just note down these terms and find out what of these do. They won't ask you about this in the exam. They will ask you only in Viva. That too, if they are very like they want to ask something like this. They will ask. It's not very commonly asked. So I just wanted to mention about that. Again, your keratoconus and keratoglobus already someone mentioned. So like in conjunctiva, you have various pigmentations and rings. So those I will just mention what are those. So these are all the various rings over here. So when you have iron, you have Fleischer's ring, or you have Stocker's line, your Ferry's line, your Hudson-Starley's line. That is for iron, and this Kaiser-Fleischer ring is what they usually ask us. That's in copper deposition. It occurs in Wilson's disease, and then this Krunkenberg spindle order. They will ask. There are two rings they will ask you mainly is Kaiser-Fleischer ring and Fleischer ring. Others all are accessory. If you want to note down, you can note them down. So that would okay. How do you treat corneal diseases like the ulcers? What do you do for superficial ulcers, deep ulcers?
Bandage contact lens can be prescribed.
Basically, what you need to
To
do is
relieve the pain, we have to give cycloplegics.
yeah, and then you don't need to treat superficial ulcers per se. You need to just identify the cause and eliminate it. If it's a bacterial cause, and you give antibiotics, or if it's a viral, antiviral drugs orally. If it's a fungus growing, then topical antifungal agents. You give all of this and you relieve off the insult. The cornea will recover on its own in case of a superficial ulcer. In case of deep ulcers, what would you do?
Keratoplasty.
Editor, you can't go to keratoplasty. Before that, you can do debridement and you check if the cornea replenishes on its own. But like you said, if it's a very bad case of corneal ulcer, then obviously you have to go for keratoplasty. So keratoplasty is one of the important procedures which you need to know. The most important one being cataract removal, that is your manual small incision cataract surgery, your phacoemulsification. After that would be your keratoplasty. Other than that, your dacrocystorhinostomy, all of those are in that order if you know it's enough. So first preference is cataract surgery, second is phacoemulsification, third will be your DCR, dacrocystorhinostomy, and then finally will be your keratoplasty. These four are the procedures which you need to know as a UG graduate from ophthalmology. So, so conjunctiva is over, cornea is over. Sclera. It's very simple. Sclera. So, can somebody tell me about the sclera and scleral pathologies?
Scleritis, episcleritis.
Yeah, those two are the only problems you're going to have this sclera. What it happens is there are some vessels, episcleral vessels, which usually get easily rupture and cause red eye. So this scleritis, episcleritis is mostly going to be because of that only. And usually it is a it is like a, you won't have scleritis, episcleritis alone. You will have a conjunctivitis, it will spread and become a scleritis or episcleritis or something like that. So it is a fibrous coat and it gives structural stability to the eyeball. That is the function of the sclera. Since it's a fibrous thing, that's why it's white in color. And then you can see for your jaundice, icterus will be seen in the sclera. And then episcleritis and scleritis are the most common conditions. Again, like you said, uh, like your to relieve that redness and pain, you give cycloplegics. Other than that, you can give lubricant gels and things like that. And episcleritis and all of those will get cured on its own, and it doesn't happen on its own. Usually, it's a complication of some other disease. So that is all about the sclera. We missed a little bit about the outer part of the eye, that is your eyelids, and then eyelashes. So can someone just quickly, off your head, tell me all the different problems with the eyelids, eyelashes?
Ectropion, entropion,
Yeah, chalazion.
there.
So these three you have to always know, that is your short case. Those glands get inflamed, and based on the pus point pressing and the painless, you can easily find out if it's an ectropion, entropion, or a chalazion. Next.
Trichiasis, dystiasis.
Yeah. So now he's talking about eyelash disorders. So what are they? What is trichiasis, dystiasis? So, like he said, trichiasis is posterior misdirected eyelashes. So the eyelashes are pointing inward, so they can cause corneal ulcers. So the treatment for this is you manually pick out those eyelashes which are turned inside, or you can do use argon laser, or you can do a wedge resection of the part of the eyelash which is like that. Your distic ashes is of two types. One is congenital and acquired. So what it is I'll just show you. I must have a picture of that somewhere here. So I found a picture for you guys. Here, can you see the difference between normal eye trichiasis and dystiasis?
Yes, you can see.
This should be a better picture. So that is
Tricky.
what,
Yeah.
yeah.
What is the difference between the trickiest and trickiest? I
Yeah,
can't
you see
really.
in trichiasis, it is a lot of hair, like there are a lot of small,
In
small eyelashes.
trichiasis, normal eyelashes are misdirected,
Yeah, in
whereas in
dystiasis,
dysticiasis, we have an extra row of eyelash.
So,
yeah. So we'll go back to this. Yeah, so those will be the main conditions of the eyelids. So other small inclusions would be this orbital cellulitis and dermatitis. All of these can be seen in the eyelids too, like some kind of big diseases like you have herpes zoster or some congenital syndromes like your Sturge-Weber syndrome, your Mikulicz syndrome. All of those you can see like bulge in eyelids and all of those things. They're very rare conditions. You won't be tested on most of them. So I just wanted to mention about all of that. So just covering those things. So eyelids, eyelashes, conjunctiva, cornea are so far covered. So moving on, sclera was also done. So anterior chamber. So what are the various things which can be collected in the anterior chamber?
Inflammatory cells,
Okay, you can have pus. So what is that known as?
hypopion.
Yeah, exactly. If you have blood, what is it known as?
hyphema.
Yeah, hypo. Then what else can be there? These two are the ones I know. If someone knows anything else, you can add on. Okay, fine. Once you are done with the uh, anterior chamber, we move on to the iris. So iris, can someone tell me what are the different, like mostly it is congenital or traumatic problems which will be there, but go on. Can someone tell me about the problems of the iris?
Yeah, iriditis, inflammation of iris.
Yeah, iriditis. The more like there are different shapes of iris colors, and then there might be
Heterochromia iridis.
yeah, then there might be some kind of iris prolapse, or all of those will be covered in cataract surgery. So I'm not going to touch up a lot about iris. We'll move on to uh, your uvea or uveal tract. So what is the uveal tract?
Iris ciliary body choroid.
Yeah, so you split it into anterior and posterior. Okay, so you have anterior and posterior. The whatever is in front of the lens, you just take it as anterior, and what is behind will be your posterior. So you have this very very important condition known as uveitis. Okay, so uveitis is a very very important condition with respect to the eye because it is at the midpoint of internal and external eye. So any problem here can spread into becoming something like an optic neuritis or some very big problem like that, or it might come from outside the eye to inside. So it is the midpoint. So it is very very important, and there are a lot of conditions which cause uveitis. So can someone tell me the different causes of uveitis here?
Infectious uveitis, non-infectious uveitis, and Muscarinic syndromes. Infectious,
Yeah,
we can have bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, and rickettsial. And non-infectious, we can have traumatic, toxic, immune-related problems we can have. And Muscarinic syndrome, it is neoplastic and non-neoplastic. The two types.
yeah. So uveitis, all of these are important, but the most important one would be this endophthalmitis. They will ask this as a short note for us, and this pan uveitis also they might ask. These are the end stage of uveitis. Like most of the uvea is damaged, and if something big is going to happen now, that is only going to be these two conditions. So inflammation of those two regions. So this would be a uveal tract. So these are all the signs which you're going to see in acute and chronic anterior uveitis. So there are going to be ciliary injection, meiosis, endothelial dusting by inflammatory cells. I basically signs of inflammation. Just uh, don't try to put this as so many points. Like you know what is going to happen in a place if inflammation takes place, right? There's going to be vasodilation. There's going to be activation of neutrophils, and the effect of all of these are going to be seen as signs by us. So that will be your anterior uveitis. In posterior uveitis, what you will see is this posterior synecdoche. So that is the most important thing you will see in chronic uveitis. So there is there are some conditions like specific things you will see in intermediate uveitis. So you can see vitreous snowballs and then inferior snow banking and neovascularization of the snow bank. So all of these are, I personally didn't understand how this happens or what's the mechanism behind it, but it's mentioned in the textbook. And if they ask something about uveitis, I needed points to write down. So I've noted down all of this. So in posterior uveitis, you can be more like once you go to this posterior region, once you go to the posterior region over here, you see the retina so there over here, right? So you can write retinitis and neuritis and all of those things you can start mentioning and take it on to that side of the eye. So the treatment for all of these are mydriatics. So the different mydriatics which we have are short acting and long acting topical agents. So these are your short acting ones: cyclopentolate, tropicamide, and phenylephrine. Long acting ones are your atropine and homatropine. Uh, you can give some subconjunctival injection of mitricane. So
I think steroids are the drug of choice
for
for all
uveitis.
kind of uveitis.
Okay, so steroids are also the drug of choice over here. First, you give mediatics, then you follow it up with steroids. So the various steroids I've written down over here. topical options are your dexamethasone, prednisolone, betamethasone, loteprednol, fluoromethazole. Just remember dexamethasone and prednisolone, those will do. And then there are periocular steroids, intraocular steroids, systemic steroids, and then antimetabolites are like your cancer drugs, uh, azathioprine, methotrexate, mycophenolate, and other newer drugs will be like your cyclosporin, tacrolimus, and biological blockers like your interleukin antagonists. So these are all the various, like when they ask you about uveitis, first you tell what is the uvea, then you split it into anterior, posterior, and then you tell anterior part uveitis means these structures will be affected. Posterior means these will be affected. Then clinically we divide uveitis into acute, intermediate, and chronic. So in acute you will see these signs, that is active inflammatory signs. In intermediate you see all the snowballs and snow bankings in the vitreous, and then in chronic you see all kinds of retinitis and all those conditions will start occurring, and then you go to the treatment. I think that would be sufficient for like a short note. Yeah, they want to ask you this as essay, as a short note. This should be sufficient. So cornea, conjunctiva, eyelids, sclera, iris, and uvea.
Lens.
So we'll move on to lens. Lens, okay, lens, they're going to roast you on cataract. You need to know in and about out about cataract. I'm pretty sure everyone knows almost 80% of cataract. So because we have been seeing that case daily in the OP. So two most important signs which you'll see for cataract to differentiate between immature and matured cataract are,
Color of the lens.
okay, color of the lens in immature, mature.
Uh, in
Immature,
immature, we can see grayish white. In mature, we
exactly.
can see purely white.
Pearly white, perfect. Okay, done. Next
Iris shadow.
is present in,
Immature cataract.
perfect. Is if it's not there, we are going to suspect mature cataract. Anything else?
Slit,
Okay, how do you examine?
The vision of the patient.
It
It will
will
be very less than 2/6 in immature cataract. It will be okay in immature cataract.
okay. When you're talking about mature cataract and you say it's less than 2/60, what are you supposed to check for the patient? Projection of rays, and they will tell you to write something for mature cataract. You need to check in
If
the
he's
scope.
not able to see anything, then PL and BR we have to see.
Usually he won't be able to see, so you do that. Okay, then
Okay.
so what else will you do? Like any important things, very important things with respect to cataract. There are some name cataracts like Euler's cataract, Ryder's cataract, Snowflake cataract, corresponding to specific conditions. All of those, talking about them now wouldn't be that effective. We'll definitely go through them one day before the exam, because I personally want to remember most of the names. If you know them, please go ahead and you can tell us.
Diabetes, if it is
Snowflake.
juvenile onset, snowflake.
Yeah. Then
Galactosemia, oil droplet.
yeah. Then Ryder's
Christmas
cataract.
tree, myotonic dystrophy.
Okay. Ryder is lamellar separation, something like that would come. Then
Mm,
so there are about 7, 8. I have them listed. I'll send it to you guys just before the exam. So just know those are there. Any other thing, like how do you examine a mature cataract patient? Like you won't be able to do something, so you do something else with respect to ophthalmoscopy. Or A scan, B scan, anything. Your formula for calculating the length.
IOL power.
The name of the
Biometry
formula.
formula.
Sir,
Yeah.
Sanders result graph
That's
formula.
graph formula. Yeah. So, if by any chance do you remember it, like
0.9 and 2.5. I
yeah,
don't
again
remember the
memory
formula.
based stuff. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So memory based stuff. Just remember it's there. We use it to calculate the power of the IOL. Okay, those are there. So you said about that vision differences in mature and immature cataract. Iris shadow is present in immature cataract, not present in mature cataract. Any other important clinical point which you want to mention for mature and immature, just so that you don't miss anything important with respect to cataract?
Hyper mature.
Hyper mature cataract. Okay,
This milky
what do you want
white.
to say?
No, we'll have to write that in
Hmm.
diagnosis, no? If we have.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, so
We
someone
have this
okay,
milky white
slowing.
fluid.
You're telling about that Morgagnian thing.
Yeah, hypermature Morgagnian.
Okay, okay. Which college are you from?
Why?
Because we don't see these cases in our college. All we see is
No,
mature
we were
cataract,
asked
and
to write if it is if it was hypermature, we were asked to write hypermature.
yeah, yeah.
Either.
Like I've not seen a case like that in my college, which is why I'm asking you which
I have a
college you are
picture I'll
from.
share in group. We
Yeah,
took a
yeah.
picture
Okay,
of
fine.
one.
Okay, chill, chill. That's not an issue. So those are the things you need to mention for cataract. And 100% you're supposed to know the steps of cataract surgery. Basic 5 steps of cataract surgery. First, you clean the patient's eye with. Hello.
Why should we clean? Like
They're doing
surgery.
cataract.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
surgery.
Povidone.
Yeah, also known as betadine. So you clean the area,
Betadine.
and then what do you do? First, you do a suture.
We'll give anesthesia.
Yeah, you give anesthesia. What anesthesia is that?
Local.
Retrobulbar.
Yeah,
Peribulbar.
there are two ways to give retrobulbar and peribulbar anesthesia. We usually give peribulbar. We don't give retrobulbar
Okay.
because reaching that retrobulbar space will be hard. And okay. What anesthesia do you give?
Xylocaine and adrenaline.
Percentage.
I don't know.
Okay, you give 2% xylocaine with adrenaline. Why do you give adrenaline?
Bloodless field and
So if there's a bloodless field, the effect of the anesthesia will be longer. So that is something you're supposed to mention. And then you give it along with some other things, some hyaluronidase.
yeah, there's some ratio. I'm not sure.
Okay, you give it with hyaluronidase for better penetration of the anesthesia. So you've given anesthesia, you've cleaned the patient's eye. Next step.
Um, superior rectus holding forceps.
You take
We
that
have
and you
to
put a suture. What is the
position the
suture?
eyeball. And then I don't remember.
Wait, first you use no, you're talking about the eyelid retractor.
No, the first position to fix the eyeball and downward gaze will give that suture in the superior rectus.
That is known as bridle suture.
Bridal suture, yeah.
Yeah, you do that first, and then you take eyelid retractor. There are two, universal and Desmarais eyelid retractor. You put it and you fix the eyeball so that that field is fully open.
Speculum, universal eye speculum.
Yeah, that thing, the eye speculum retractor. Okay, eye speculum. So you put that and you open the eye, and then what do you do? What is your first incision? You open a dash flap. You take a conjunctival flap. Okay. Which quadrant? Where do you take anything?
Inferior? No, superior.
Inferior, not superior.
Inferior. Okay.
Okay. Inferiorly, usually lateral side, you take a flap and you put a tunnel. You put a corneoscleral tunnel, sclerocorneal tunnel, and it is in a three-dimensional tunnel. So what is it is you go horizontally, then vertically down, and then horizontally to enter into the uh, anterior chamber. So what that is, I will draw it and show in this picture over here. So suppose this is the, I know you won't go straight like this. What you will do is, so what you do is you do a corneoscleral tunnel. So you'll go horizontally like this, and then you'll go vertically down like this, and then again you will go horizontally like this. So it's three-dimensional. So what basically it does is you don't need to suture anything back into place. If you just remove it, it'll be like once you're done with it and you give it time, it will get set on its own. So that is the advantage of this corneoscleral tunnel, and you enter into the anterior chamber. So before entering into the anterior chamber, you're supposed to put some side thing. Does anyone know what that is?
The side port for aspiration of the lens.
Not only that, before that you put side port, you have both aspiration and irrigation. Do you know what that cannula is? Irrigation aspiration cannula, one thing they put. So what a very important thing is we need to maintain the depth of the anterior chamber. So while you're doing uh, cataract surgery, they will always have this viscous loaded in a needle. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this viscid, whenever they're going in or doing any kind of procedure, for every movement they do, they will keep injecting viscous into the anterior chamber to ensure that the cornea is not damaged. If the corneal endothelium is damaged, what will you have post-op?
Prolapse of iris.
No, cornea is damaged in the corneal endothelium.
Corneal transparency will be lost.
அப்படி ஜென்ரலா சொல்ல முடியாது. Like you will have some kind of opacity will happen, or it'll become that's one striate keratopathy oda first stage. I forgot its name. That is why
lamellar.
Yeah, so basically that gets damaged and it can end up in striate keratopathy. Adala post-op complications of cataract. That's why they keep it's very dangerous complication, so that's why they keep putting viscous. Yeah, so they keep putting viscous, they put side port, அதுக்கு ஒரு NCR னு ஒரு blade வரும். So they use that light and they put one incision, they put side port. Now they've gone into the anterior chamber. Okay, now what do they do next? இதுக்கு மேல it will become very easy.
Anterior capsulotomy.
First எடுத்தோனே capsulotomy. First capsular hexes போட்டு they will put அதுக்கு they will bend one needle in one shape 145 degree, they will put it in, they will do one rotation, and then they'll remove that capsule. Then they will bring the lens from the anterior from the posterior chamber to the anterior chamber. They will slowly move the lens. They will put viscous into the lens, and after that lens will jump out in will come to the anterior chamber, and then they will have one sandwich method. They will take out that lens using one, I don't know what that thing is called, keratoma. Keratome is for putting hole, no? Something else. No, it has one name. U-shaped irrigation you can do. I forgot its name. They use that
rotating thing, huh?
Yeah,
Sinsky, some
no.
Sinsky.
Sinski's hook was for dialing the
Yeah,
iol.
dialing the.
இது hook மாதிரி இருக்கும். They will put it, they will அப்படியே hold it like sandwich and bring it out. Forgot its name. Uh, so they will use that and they'll take it out, and then they'll take IOL, they'll put it inside, they'll use IOL dialer and rotate it into place, and then they will just remove the side port, remove everything, they'll inject again anesthesia, dexamethasone, they will close the eye and they will leave it. So what are the immediate post-op complications which are they going to see? Next day, once the surgery is over, next day they will see if this is there now, they will 100% know that they have failed in that surgery. What is that?
Prolapse, iris prolapse.
Okay, iris prolapse with a flattened anterior chamber, you can say. If the anterior chamber becomes flat now, that's it. That surgery has failed and something is going to happen. That is something you need to know. Then there are intermediate and long-term complications of cataract. So can anyone else, someone else talk? Like only one person is talking.
For early complication, IFEMA and striate keratopathy and anterior uveitis, post-operative anterior uveitis may be commonest, and toxic anterior chamber syndrome. It will arise immediately after the surgery, and delayed post-operative complications were cystoid macular edema (CME) is very important. Like
striate keratopathy can follow and become bullous keratopathy. I just remembered about it.
Yes, and then after cataract can be a complication of delayed complication. That's all it is.
Yeah, you can have some kind of pot. If you're not using any sterile environments, then you can have some kind of vitreous leakage can happen if you damage the posterior capsule, and then you can have some kind of ophthalmitis, optic neuritis. All of this panuveitis, all of these are complications of unsterile environment. So that would be about your cataract surgery. So I think it's already been 1.5 hours. So we just talk a little bit about retina fundus picture, and we'll end up with this session. Okay.
Okay.
So retina, what are the various things you will see in the retina?
Optic disc, macula,
Mm.
peripheral retina. A vascular
Ora
supply.
So these are the things you'll see. So first of all, you'll see the media, the optic disc, the macula, the retinal vessels, and general fundus. So the media is usually clear, which is normal. It can be hazy or partially or totally opaque in any kind of inflammatory conditions. And then optic disc, the size, shape, margin, color, and cupping are important. So these are the various changes you are going to see in the optic disc. It's increased in size in myopia. It's small in hypermetropia. It's usually oval in shape. It becomes sharp, clearly defined in optic atrophy, and then your margins are the shape is oval in shape. The margin is sharp, clearly defined in optic atrophy. It's blurred in secondary optic atrophy or optic neuritis or papillary edema, and all of those conditions. It's blurred and not clearly seen. The color it's usually pink. It becomes pale white in optic atrophy and yellow in retinitis pigmentosa. So that is that and retinoblastoma are two important conditions which you need to know. And then cupping, pathological cupping is seen in glaucoma, and then papilledema in any case where there's papilledema, like increased pressure, you have this cupping which can be seen. So other than that, this will be all the various pathological findings which you can see in the fundus. So if you can just pick up anyone and tell me in which condition it would be seen. It will be nice.
Vitreous hemorrhage in diabetes.
Yeah. Okay. Not only diabetes, even in neovascularization due to proliferative diabetes. Okay, fine.
Yeah, again diabetic retinopathy.
Then
Asteroid hyalosis in, is it in peripheral vitreous detachment?
I'm not sure. I really don't know all the conditions here, but I've just
Okay. Pre-retinal hemorrhage again in diabetes, proliferative diabetic
any
retinopathy.
hemorrhage over here is due to that, mostly due to diabetes.
Neovascularization.
So choroidal detachment is any weakness, like if there's any retinal detachment, all those things can be seen. And then horseshoe tear with flap. This is one classic Alana sign. That happens in retinal detachment. Horseshoe tear. It happens in retinal detachment. So the snowflake degeneration, lattice degeneration, all of those again, systemic diseases coming into your retina. So the main retinal pathologies which you know or which you should know would be your retinal vessels occlusion, like CRAO, CRBO, and then how to differentiate between them, the signs. And then other than this, the if you want to know about the retina, you need to know in detail about retinal function tests. So vision, we know about near vision, far vision. There are other parts of vision like contrast, field of vision, color vision. All of these are like not focused, they're not taught to us as a UG level, they're reserved for PG. So those are also things which you can just read about little bit. These are most of the important questions which will 100% appear in your university exams. And the other important topics which you missed out are glaucoma. 100% there will be some question from glaucoma. And then dacrocystitis, highly likely to be asked. Your neuro ophthalmology is if the paper is going to be tough, they can ask you the various lesions of the optic tract and it corresponds to what type of vision loss. Other than this, there are two important systemic conditions which you need to touch upon: your thyroid eye diseases and your ocular traumas, the traumatic eye diseases like your what happens to the conjunctiva, cornea, eyelids, eyelashes. What are the various types of injuries you can have due to trauma? Those are the important things which I wanted to cover in this session, but it's becoming very late, and I'm not sure if everyone is able to focus over here. So we'll end this session over here. Okay, I hope it was useful for you guys, and if you'd like to give any feedback, it would be nice.